Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in to The Whole Child. This is episode 9, Kimberly. Can you believe that?
This time is flying. It is not believable. No, at all.
I,
Because like we just decided one day we were going to do this thing, and now it's a thing.
right. It's amazing. It's amazing to be here, and it's amazing to be in this capacity. And I really had to kind of take a step back, just having a vulnerable moment right now. I really had to take a step back and just really appreciate how God is moving in my life, and
Mm,
the things that He's doing and the things that He's moving with teaching for the culture.
mm,
Um, I am just amazed at the headway and the stuff that we have been able to accomplish. And, I just want to thank you, Kimberlyn, because, I didn't know what I was doing when I was like, hey, let's go on live together and like let's talk about this stuff. Like I didn't know like it was gonna lead up to like more doors and more access into things to really move our children. So I just want to thank you for being here and being faithful to this work and this movement with Teaching for the Culture. So thank you.
My pleasure. I really appreciate you even highlighting that. Like I've been in this space lately where I'm like, give people their roses while they're alive to get them, right? Because I feel the exact same way. Like I had been living this life and doing this work and really trying to get the messages out and make sure people understand, but didn't really have a way to get it out to a large amount of people that I felt like really needed to get impacted. And some of it I think was me being nervous. I just don't like to do this. Like I do not like to be in front of the camera with a microphone. Like that is I just really prefer to be in the background, and I recognize
Mhm.
that the more that I live that God keeps pushing me to the forefront. But it was not until you were like, let's do this together that I was like, all right. I'll do it. But I've just seen so much support and exponential impact for us to really be able to have these conversations with people and to really illuminate some of the things that are happening, especially in regards to trauma with our kids, which is just a passion of mine. So thank you for providing the platform, and thank you for acknowledging that, there's something that we can talk about here, and giving me a place to use my voice as well as build my confidence in what I felt needed to get out there. So this is mutually beneficial, and I love that. I feel like mutually beneficial relationships and situations are the best kind, because we're both, able to get something out of this, and at the end of the day our kids are the ones who win the most, and it just makes it that much more fulfilling because neither of us started this with our own personal interests. It was really about, yo, we need to do something and speak up for these kids who don't have a voice. So this has been an absolute pleasure. I don't count this. I feel like when we do things that we love and things that come from a real place, it doesn't feel like work. So for me, this doesn't feel like work. This feels like I get to sit down with my friend. We get to talk about these things. We get to bring people into our conversation, and we get to change stuff. And that doesn't feel like work at all to me. So I'm happy to be here. I'm always excited to be here, and really looking forward to our show today. Um, because I do believe that it does have impact and it does have power. So I do want to take a second to try to share because I struggle in the multitasking arena. You're a pro at that. Like you be over there with the things, right? I be over here like, hold the phone 1 second. I can't even. Okay, so I do want to go ahead and share with the people that are in my network because I need them to make sure that they come and hang out with us. So let me take a moment to do that. And we see that y'all are coming in. So as y'all come in, definitely say hey. Let us know that you are watching. This episode today is, and always is for all of us, but today is definitely for us and to have your voices heard. So feel free to comment, chime in. It's going to be a good time. All right.
Amen.
Okay. I did it. I did it. I did it. All right. Y'all, one day, I used to tell people, I tell my life coaching clients all the time, I'm like, multitasking is not a thing. Okay. Like you really, because I've been practicing mindfulness and I've really been trying to be fully engaged in where I am at the present moment and not have my
Mhm.
brain split in so many places. So it's hard for me when I am trying to split my brain. Like, so it is. So that's just, but yeah. So our episode today, what's the title again?
So the title is The Power of a Teacher, of the Teacher.
The power of a teacher. So we know that there are several of you all who are listening to us that are across the country, right? Not necessarily here locally in the Tampa Bay area. Um, and nothing we ever talk about is specifically rooted in Tampa, right? The things that we're talking about is all about kids, and these are universal concepts that we are talking about here. But our episode today was inspired by a situation that's happening here in Tampa as well as in California. Um, so there is a huge school board race that's going on here, and both of us have been really involved in that. But through that, we had some stories come forth of some former students. And I know we've shared before, Bianca, we had a show where we were showing pictures of statements by students and things that they would say about how they didn't feel like their parents knew them, or they didn't feel like they had a voice, or they felt like they were being prejudged or what have you. So we really try
Mhm.
to amplify the voices of students and children on this show because it's important to understand where they're coming from and how they perceive things, um, so that we're able to acknowledge and honor who we say that we're fighting for. If we're fighting for our kids, then they should have a voice to be able to say, hey, this is the kind of fight that I need you to do, as you're fighting for me. So we've been inundated with current student voice and former student voice, and really have just been thinking about a way to be able to honor that, um, and put it into a context where everybody can understand. So as we were talking about what this show was about, the power of a teacher, we decided that we want to hear your voices as well. So what we are going to invite you to do is in the comments while we're talking, if you will write some of the stories of the power of a teacher in your life. And that power may have left a positive impact on you, or it may have left a negative impact on you, or you might have multiple stories. But we wanted to provide a place for those stories, to be discussed. Okay, so be working on that in the comments so that we can amplify some of those stories. So before I came on today, I was watching a webinar, and you remember we talked about Push Out, that the Push Out documentary.
Yeah.
So Push Out is a documentary. The author's name just flew out of my brain. Is Dr. Monique. I'm gonna think of her last name in a second. But they just had a webinar talking about Push Out, and Push Out is a book. It's called Push Out: The Criminalization of Black Girls. And they have a book, and she just recently made a documentary that is actually available on PBS right now. And Dr. Monique was on with a couple other panelists. There's a principal whose name was Stephanie, and then there was a little girl on there whose name was Kiara Jean. And Kiara was there because they wanted to give Kiara an opportunity to talk from the eyes of a student, right? So, again, amplifying that student voice. And one of the things, well, Kiara said two things that really stuck with me. She said several, but I'm going to highlight two right now. She said, teachers need to learn their students, and they need to learn to love their students. And that just hit a special place inside of me because I was like, yes, like we have to learn how to learn about our students, and not just educators, but adults. We have to learn how to learn our children, and we have to learn how to love them, even when they may be doing things that are difficult or challenging. They still deserve to be seen and heard and honored and loved. And I was just like, this girl, and she was all of maybe like, she was in middle school. So she was maybe like 13. But we were in the comments like, yes, young queen,
Mhm.
people. Like she was really, really on it. Um, and when I think about having both of us having worked in middle school, when we think about the impressionable age that our kids are at, it made that much more powerful for me, that we have to be intentional about learning our kids and loving our kids. So I wanted to, y'all know, I was laughing the other day. I was listening to one of my videos, and I was like, I always got some kind of pop quiz or something that I'm doing with people. I can never turn the educator off. But I wanted to unpack this graphic that talks about identification development, right? To help us to understand why what we're doing and talking about is so critical, and is something that we really have to pay special attention to. So if you could bring that up for me, Bianca, so I can kind of go through this. So basically, if you all see that this graphic is talking about, it has different age frames, right? So it goes from infant all the way to 65 years old. Then there is a crisis that might happen. So this is every person's crisis that they might encounter at particular moments in their life. Then there is a favorable outcome, and then there's an unfavorable outcome. So what this graphic is showing us is how, from the age of infant to the time that we are 65 years plus, that we go through these hallmarks along the way of how we function, and how we the transformative moments that we have in shaping our identity. So if you look and see, back at the infant level, we have the trust versus mistrust crisis. And that's really about, does that child understand? Hey, truth. Does that child understand that they're in a trusting environment, or in a mistrusting environment? The favorable outcome is that they have faith in the environment and future events, but the unfavorable outcome is that there's suspicion and fear. What we know is that early childhood trauma continues to have an effect on us even later in life. So if there was some type of issue back at that first stage, in that infant to 18-month stage, that trust versus mistrust radar is off. There's a lot that is happening there, and that can follow us, and we kind of get stuck in that place where we were. So then if we move to 18 months to 3 years, we're looking at autonomy versus doubt and shame. So this is a child's understanding of whether they can be independent, or whether they are shrouded with feelings of shame and self-doubt. So again, that crisis can go either way, right? They can come out with a lot of self-control and independence and confidence in who they are to be able to function independently, or they can feel that there's something wrong there. So again, if that happens, they get stuck at that area. So then the next phase is 3 to 5 years old. And now we're talking about initiative versus guilt. That favorable outcome is, does this child have the ability to be a self starter? Can they initiate their own activities? Or are they having that unfavorable outcome of feeling that they're inadequate and they're not able to make decisions on their own? They're not able to be successful at things. And this is very early. So 3 to 5 is where you're talking about preschool to kindergarten, right? So if things are again happening here that are causing unfavorable outcomes, a person can get stuck in these areas. So next we go to 5 to 13 years. We're looking at industry versus inferiority. Favorable outcome, the ability to learn how things work, to understand, and to organize. The unfavorable outcome is a sense of inferiority in understanding and organizing. So at this age, this is kindergarten up to about sixth, seventh grade, that this is a child that's really trying to figure out how things fit in their world. What does this look like? How do things work? Then we go to that next phase, and this is the one that I want to center what we're talking about today on. 13 through 21 years old. So this is about seventh, eighth grade through graduation from high school into early adulthood. The crisis here is identity versus confusion. The favorable outcome is that one would see themselves as unique and as an integrated person, in comparison to the unfavorable outcome of confusion over who and what they really are. Now, as I'm talking about this and unpacking this, you may be thinking in your mind a few things. So, some of y'all already skipped ahead to where you were on the chart, and you were like, let me see where I'm at. Okay, so I'm in my 30s or I'm in my 40s. This is what's going on with me right now. So, let me see if I'm having an identity crisis. But then others of you may have been thinking about your past and thinking about things that you're like, oh, I might not be the most trusting person, or maybe it's not you, maybe it's your partner, or maybe it's somebody that you're connected to, your siblings or your best friend or what have you, and really thinking about how those areas have been illuminated for you. Now, in that 13 to 21-year old band, when we're talking about identity versus confusion, think about this is the stage of life where kids are really figuring out who they are. They're discovering the things that they like. They're discovering the things that they're willing to stand for in comparison to the things that they're not. They're discovering what's important for them, what they're passionate about, who they're willing, and what causes they're willing to pick up and fight for. They're thinking about what their strengths are. In comparison to the places that they may feel are weaknesses. They're thinking about whether they like themselves, whether they how they identify as a friend. They're having their first crushes, so they're identifying even some of their sexual identity in that. So there's a lot that happens in that band. Now, again, those of us that teach middle school and high school, these secondary years, let me tell you, things be popping off, okay? Because it's a lot going on, okay? So when we talk about the power of a teacher, it's important at these stages to understand that our kids are trying to understand who they are. So we have to be very intentional about the things that we say to them because they are trying to understand who they are. Now, I wanted to read something else that Kiara said today. They asked her, what describe a teacher that is supportive. They were like, describe a teacher that is supportive. What does that supportive teacher do or sound like? So Kiara said, that teacher creates a bond. That teacher sees me for who I am and doesn't try to turn me into somebody else. She said that teacher creates rituals. Those rituals might sound like saying good morning every day or asking us how we're doing and waiting to hear an answer. She said, I want people to remember that kids are sponges and we take in everything that somebody says to us about who we are. And I'm tired of people overusing their powers on students and hurting kids' feelings. And I just had to, like, it made me tear up in that moment because I was like, first of all, this girl is speaking from a wisdom that is like unmatched. Because again, she's in middle school, so she's probably somewhere around that 13-year-old range. But for her to talk about the fact that kids are sponges and they're looking and searching to find out who they are, and they're taking in everything that everybody says about them, right? So their teachers, their friends, their parents, and they're internalizing all of that information so that they can make a decision about this is who I am.
Mhm.
But then when we overuse our powers that we have, and we decide that we're going to hurt kids' feelings, or we're going to say things to them about them as opposed to speaking life into them, it is so damaging.
Yeah.
And I just, like I always say all the time, like the types of things that have been happening, we could not write this story. Like I consider myself to be a pretty okay writer, but this stuff right now, I couldn't have even created this storyline. The same way I registered for this webinar, I don't know, like three weeks ago. So I didn't know that it would be so pertinent to what we were talking about today, but here it is, right? Um so thinking about what we do to our kids, what we do for our kids, what we do on behalf of our kids, led us to really talking about the power of a teacher. So again, I want you all to drop into the comments what powerful um, what powerful interactions you've had with teachers, and I want us to share ours as well. So you have, I know I didn't really prep you for this, Bianca, but
It's okay.
go ahead.
I'm used to you just throwing me in the fire, so it's fine. Um, I remember my high school teacher at Lake Mary High School. Her name is Miss Jones. She was my algebra teacher, and she was the type of teacher that, she was teaching math concepts, and she was the type of teacher that allowed you to struggle to figure it out, but she never gave up on you.
Mm,
And she was the one that would always encourage you, like, hey, you got this, you got this,
mm,
and I'm rooting for you. And she was very, celebratory of her children and created that atmosphere, like making learning fun. Like, who wants
mm,
to learn algebra? Like,
mm,
really? Like, we don't use a lot of algebra skills in, today's world, but she made it where it's like, we have to know this. We have to do this. It was a setup, but at least she had a wonderful, nice atmosphere to learn those topics and to learn those skills. And she was very helpful to me.
mm,
I would go in her room and I would get tutoring, and she would help, and she would ask me about my day, and it was like she was invested in me.
mm,
And it was like she saw me, and it validated me, especially in a time where I didn't feel validated in myself.
mm. Wow. And did she have any idea like what was going on in your personal life at that time?
At that time, no, because I'd never really shared that thing. People would say, like, "How are you doing?" And I would give my typical, answer, "I'm fine, I'm okay." But
Mm,
in actuality, I really wasn't. But,
mm,
I played along like I was.
mm. Yeah, and what was her name again? You said Miss Jones?
Miss Jones.
Miss Jones. Um, I have a similar, so it's so funny that you mentioned the algebra, right? Because my algebra teacher was, well, I had two algebra teachers because I took algebra in eighth grade, but then I took it again in ninth grade. So I'll start with my ninth grade algebra teacher. It was Sister Lucy, and I went to an all girls Catholic high school in New Orleans, and I loved every second of it. It was amazing, like loved it. I matter of fact, I told my mom if I didn't get into this high school, I was dropping out in eighth grade. I was like, I'm just gonna drop out because this is the school that I want to go to. I had a big cousin that had gone, and she was homecoming queen, and I was just like, oh my god, I want to be like her when I grow up. So at any rate, Sister Lucy, old white lady, like old. Sister Lucy had to be like 70 something years old. Okay. And what I appreciated about Sister Lucy is kind of what you mentioned about Miss Jones is Sister Lucy would push us, and she would not accept I don't know for an answer. She was like, because you are smart and you are going to figure these things out. So I will sit here until you get it figured out. And she would create an atmosphere where we just felt like we were geniuses. because she kept telling us, like, you are smart. And she'd say stuff like, the reason you're in my class is because you are smart. So I need to see it. Where is your brilliance? That's what she used to say to us. Where is your brilliance? Access your brilliance. I want y'all to think about this little short old white lady, okay, in her nun's, I don't know what it's called, outfit. I don't know, but she was like dressed as a nun, like she was a nun. And Sister Lucy was like, "Where's your brilliance? Access your brilliance." So we started doing that, like accessing our brilliance. It was so awesome. Um, so I really, when you mentioned algebra, like made me think immediately about Sister Lucy. But then on the other side of that, I think about my eighth grade algebra teacher, and I shared this on my page one day that her name is Miss Sullivan, Miss Lois Sullivan, and she accused me of cheating in eighth grade, and I never forgave her for that, because one thing I am not is a cheater. And all I was doing was asking somebody if I could borrow their pencil sharpener, and she accused me of cheating. And I still to this day, like, that made such an impact on me that when I started teaching, I made sure that I never accused the kid of cheating, because it had real detrimental effects on me. And that was a while ago. But the teacher that I really wanted to bring up was Dr. Pratt. Now, Dr. Pratt was my organic chemistry teacher. Any of y'all out there had to take organic chemistry? You ever had to take organic, Bianca? What was your no, you were like a
Mm-mm.
business major or something, right?
I was a what major?
What, a business major? What was your major?
So my major was criminal justice in college, and
Got
a minor in psychology,
got you. And then you went on to get your MBA,
and
right?
then I got my MBA.
Okay, maybe that's where I'm getting it from. So, I was a biology major, right, and went in the pre med program, and was in school on a full scholarship. And my sophomore year, well, my freshman year, I took general chemistry, did an amazing job. I loved it. It was great. And then sophomore year, I took organic chemistry, and I had Dr. Pratt. And Dr. Pratt was he was this middle-aged white guy, and he like had Tourette's. Okay, and I'm not trying to be funny, like he real life had Tourette's. So he would like blurt stuff out and have like this tick, like it was a whole thing. So after I got over that, Dr. Pratt would start out the year every year, and he would say, and I was at Fisk University, so it's a very small school. We only had like 1,000 students total, but we maybe had like 30, 35 kids in the organic class. So he'd start out every year and he'd say, there are 35 of y'all in here, and by the time this semester is over, it's only going to be 5 of y'all left. And I was like,
Mm.
dang, okay, but I'm here on full scholarship, right? So clearly, Sister Lucy said, access your brilliance. So let me find my brilliance, right? So I'm trying to do the organic, and it is not clicking. Any of y'all that have taken organic, I don't know, like, it ain't too many of us come out of that successfully. So I just felt like I was dumb. I was like, I clearly am stupid. Like, I cannot get this. So I just withdrew. I was like, let me just withdraw. So I withdrew, failing. Okay. So then the next year, my advisor says, Dr. Pratt is the best teacher on campus. You need to go back to Dr. Pratt because he is the best, and you need to pass this class. So I'm like, cool. All right. I'm about to do this, right? Because I'm brilliant. Okay. So I'm like, all right, let me go do this. So I roll up back up in there, and I take organic, and I'm sucking, like I'm doing horribly. Okay, so I go to Dr. Pratt's office, and I'm like, Dr. Pratt, like I need some help, because I had to learn how to advocate for myself, right? So I'm like, I need some help, Dr. Pratt, because I don't understand the things. Like this carbon atom is doing the most, and I just don't know, right? So Dr. Pratt looks at me and he says, "What is your major?" And I said biology. And he's like, you're trying to be a doctor? And I was like, yes, sir. And he said, well, if you can't pass my class, then you'll never make it in med school, because
Mm.
organic chemistry is like two of my classes, one of Dr. Collins' classes, and one of Dr. Watson's classes. So if you can't, how are you doing in physics? And at the time I was taking physics, I had like a C by the skin of my teeth. So I was like, I have a C. He was like, yeah, you won't make it in med school. Do y'all know I did not apply for med school? I did not take the MCAT. And I tried to stay in organic. I was like, okay, if I can can pass that first semester, then maybe I could do the second semester and like just make up the first semester. So if I can at least get a D, then I will take the second semester. I could just retake first semester. Yo, I got an F, like a straight up F, like I didn't even put my name on the paper F, right? Like,
Mm.
how, Sway? Failed organic. But guess what? I still got to take organic to get this degree. Okay. So that means I still got to pass this class. I go to my advisor. I'm like, look, I done took Dr. Pratt twice times now. Your boy, I can't. So he's like, okay, we'll take the other teacher. So the other teacher was Dr. Penner. So I take Dr. Penner, the old white man. So I take Dr. Penner. Y'all know I got an A in organic.
Wow.
Do you understand that I had withdrawn failing out of Dr. Pratt's class? I
Wow.
failed Dr. Pratt's class. And then my senior year, I took Dr. Penner and got an A. And not just that I took Dr. Penner and got an A. Let me tell you the classes I had that year. I had human anatomy and physiology, plant physiology, organic chemistry, microbiology, and art.
All at the same time?
All at the same time.
Mm-mm. You better
All
than me,
at
sis.
the same. Got an A in organic. I finished my senior year with a 3.7 with all of those freaking classes.
Wow.
But what Dr. Pratt had done is he caused what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And a self-fulfilling prophecy is when somebody tells you that you're not gonna make it, you're not gonna be it, you're not gonna whatever, right? Because you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, whatever it is that they say to you, and then you internalize that and you produce those results.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what I know is that self-fulfilling prophecies also work in the opposite way. So I want to take y'all back to high school, and I've talked about this on my page. My actually I won't even talk about her. I'll talk about my 11th and 12th grade history teacher. Now, I don't like history. I ain't never liked history. Like ever. Ever, ever,
Mm-hmm.
ever. I hated it. I wanted to poke my eyeballs out. It was the most boring thing in the world to me. I was just like, no. Miss Bayham was my 11th grade American history teacher. And I remember walking up in there and being like, here we go. Here we go. Y'all know I don't like history. Like, can I just get a B and whatever, right? And Miss Bayham had this way of number one, taking time to get to know us, right? But she made history relevant for us. So she asked us at the beginning of class, who in here likes history? And like two people raised their hands. And she was like, and she told us a story um, about about the Boston Tea Party, and she was like, can y'all imagine like people getting so upset, like they come in, they go to work or whatever, and they tell them that all of these things have changed and they have no say in what that looks like, and they get so mad that they just start flipping tables and tossing stuff, and they're just over it, like they just have a whole revolt. And we were like, no, but turn up though, turn. And what she told us is, I just told y'all the story of the Boston Tea Party.
Mm.
And we were like, girl, let's read about this Boston Tea Party, girl. Let's talk about these things. Because she had realized that in order for us to learn, that she had to make it relevant. Like she had to tell us something that we would care about. So she did that for so many of the concepts that we did in 11th grade. This was AP American History, and then I took AP Civics, and from the same teacher, because I was like, ain't no way I'm about to go sit in nobody else's class. Like Miss Bayham is where it's at. And she just really took the time to remind us again of our brilliance. And it was phenomenal. And we rose to the challenge because she believed that we could.
Mhm.
Do you have any teachers that stand out to you that in your like, this teacher made a positive, long lasting impact on me?
Yes.
Cool.
So her name is Miss Dupuis. She was my fourth grade teacher. This was the time where I found out that my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she was battling cancer, and she actually named her daughter after me. Um, And she was very caring. She was very kind. And in the fourth grade, we were in Florida, so we had to take the FCAT. I struggled with that because, I wasn't focused on that. But she was very caring and she would pull me aside. And she really went above and beyond my fourth grade year with the trauma that I was dealing with to understand and empathize what I was going through and not take it as I'm being lazy or I'm choosing not to participate, but realizing that, there's some things that I'm dealing with that, supersedes what the current lesson is for today. And she was very empathetic in that way and she made me feel special.
Wow. You made me think about something that I always say to teachers and people, that there's always a story behind the story. So here you are, unfocused, struggling to pass, just I'm here, but by the skin of my teeth, like I'm here in body, not necessarily in mind. And she took the time to see that Bianca was more than an unfocused student who was a struggling learner.
Yeah.
And that was in fourth grade.
Fourth grade.
Wow. I wanna show that video that we pulled, and then I want to
Mhm.
tell y'all about my guidance counselor. And I want y'all to put your teacher impact stories into the comments because we want to highlight some of them.
All right, let's roll the
Okay,
clip.
go ahead.
He says the problem with teachers is what's a kid going to learn from someone who decided that his best option in life is to become a teacher? He reminds the other dinner guests that, it's true what they say about teachers. Those who can, do. And those who can't, teach. I decide to bite my tongue instead of his, and resist the urge to remind the other dinner guests that it's also true what they say about lawyers, because we're eating, after all, and this is supposed to be polite conversation. I mean, you're a teacher, Taylor. Come on, be honest. What do you make? And I wish he hadn't done that. Asked me to be honest. Because you see, I have this little policy about honesty and ass-kicking, which is, if you ask for it, then I have to let you have it. You want to know what I make? I make kids work harder than they ever thought they could. I can make a C+ feel like a Congressional Medal of Honor, and I can make an A- feel like a slap in the face. How dare you waste my time with anything less than your very best? You want to know what I make? I make kids sit through 40 minutes of study hall in absolute silence. No, you may not work in groups. No, you cannot ask me a question, so put your hand down. Why won't I let you go to the bathroom? Because you're bored, and you don't really have to go, do you? I make parents tremble in fear when I call home at around dinner time. Hi, this is Mr. Molly. I hope I haven't called it a bad time. I just wanted to talk to you about something that your son said today. He said, leave the kid alone. I still cry sometimes, don't you? And it was the noblest act of courage that I have ever seen. I make parents see their children for who they are and who they can be. You want to know what I make? I make kids wonder. I make them question. I make them criticize. I make them apologize and mean it. I make them write. And then I make them read. I make them spell definitely beautiful, definitely beautiful, definitely beautiful over and over and over again, until they will never misspell either one of those words again. I make them show all their work in math class and then hide it on their final drafts in English. I make them realize that if you've got this, then you follow this. And if somebody ever tries to judge you based on what you make, you give them this. Here, let me break it down for you so you know what I say is true. Teachers make a goddamn difference. Now what about you? Thank you.
So my senior year in high school, I was doing everything that I could to get out of my parents' house. I had a very verbally abusive and physically abusive mother, and I just knew I needed to get away. I had decided in second grade that I was going to go to college because I heard that college was the way to like get out of your situation and to be able to move away. So I was like, I need to go to this college, right? So I worked really hard my entire school career to make sure that I had great grades so that I would be able to get scholarships because I we didn't have any money and I knew we didn't have any money. So I needed to make sure that I had scholarships so that I could go to school. So I had, taken the ACT and done very well, and taken the SAT and applied to all of the schools that I could think of, applied for all the scholarships that I could think of because I needed to make sure that I didn't have to pay to go to school. And my guidance counselor, my junior and senior year, her name is Miss Yolande Dillon. She called me into her office one day in March of my senior year. Now I graduated in May. She called me in March and she says, where are you going to go to school? Everybody is declaring where they're going. Like, where are you going? And I was like, I don't really know. I think I'm going to just go to LSU. Right. And she was like, just go. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to go. I had a scholarship to FAM. I was like, I don't want to go to FAM. I don't want to go to Xavier. I don't want to go to Oklahoma University. I'm gonna just go to LSU. And she was like, ma'am, you are not just gonna do anything. You have worked too hard to get to this moment to have all of these options. Where are all of your application packets and your acceptance letters? So I pull them out and I put them on the desk and we're going through each one. She's like, we're going to make a pile and you're going to have to tell me why the school is possible or why you don't want to go to the school. So we make the pile. And then we get to Fisk University. And I was like, I would go to Fisk, but they only offered me $800. And I'm not paying to go to school. I've worked too hard. So she says, $800. I said, yes, ma'am. So she was like, hold the phone. So she winds up calling the director of admissions, Anthony Jones, and she says to him, I'm sitting here with Kimberland, and she has a application packet that she's given to you all, and I'm trying to figure out why y'all only offered her $800. So Andrea, she contacted me because I had not declared where I was going. It was time to make those declarations, and I hadn't yet declared where I was going. So she calls AJ, says, I think y'all made a mistake, so y'all need to look again. So I'm sitting in her office and I'm just kind of sitting there, just like, man, it don't even matter. I just know I got to get out this house. Like, that's all I know. I got to go. Like, I don't even care anymore at this point. So maybe 10 minutes later, I'm sitting there and Mr. Jones calls back and he says, we looked again at her packet, and what we want to do is offer her a full scholarship, books, fees, room and board, and we also want to give her some research opportunities. So we're going to ask for her to come up this summer so that she can do some research and get published. But we also want to fly her up here next week so that she can visit the campus and really see it for herself. So I was like, oh, okay. All right, right. So I go home and I tell my parents, like, I'm gonna go to Nashville next week so that I can go to Fisk University, and they're gonna give me this opportunity to visit the campus. So I go on campus, I stay on campus, I get goosebumps when I walk on the campus. I'm like, this is it. Like, I know this is it, right? So I go through Fisk. I told y'all about what happened with Dr. Pratt, right? I lost my scholarship, y'all. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother thing. But failing organic was a part of that reason. Um, but I was able to finish college because I had a backup scholarship that I was able to use, and I graduate, right, cum laude. I graduate from Fisk, and I think to myself, I need to tell Miss Dillon I graduated. Right. So I contact the school and I'm like, I'm trying to find Miss Dillon. They're like, oh, Miss Dillon just doesn't work here anymore. And I'm like, well, where is she? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean? I've got to tell Miss Dillon. So I'm asking people like, where's Miss Dillon? And I can't find her. And then Hurricane Katrina happens in 2005, and everybody gets dispersed across the country. And I'm looking and looking, and I can't find her. I am, looking on Facebook. I'm Googling her. Like, she's never come up in all this time. I'm looking for Miss Dillon, and I didn't find her until like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now. I'm on Facebook and I see the people you may know, and Miss Dillon's name pops up, and I'm like, shut up. Is this Miss Dillon for real? Like, oh my God. So I send her a friend request, right? And I'm like, oh my God, is this like Miss, like my Miss Dillon? Like, oh my God. So I'm looking at the pictures that are public. I'm like, I think this is Miss Dillon. So and that maybe a day passes, and then I get a notification that says Yolanda Dillon accepted your friend request. So I'm like, oh my God. So I go in my messenger and I'm like, hi, Miss Dillon. This is Kimberly Jackson. I don't know if you remember me. I was the class of 1999. And I just wanted to let you know that you changed my life. You helped me get into Fisk. And I just wanted you to know I graduated and I'm a teacher and I'm doing amazing things. And I know I'm probably word vomiting on you right now, but I just wanted to tell you. Right. So then I'm sitting there like, did she read it? Because you know how y'all can see if somebody read it, right? So I'm like, did she read it? So then she read it. Then I was like, what? So she responds and she's like, Kimberly, of course I remember you. Of course I remember you. She's like, it is so good to hear from you. How long has it been? So I'm like, oh my God, it's been what, 21 years at this point since I graduated, and 17 years since I was at Fisk. And I just was like, I just don't even know what to say. Like, I don't have words. Y'all, I was crying. Like, I told this, I made a whole, like, I had to stop. I made a blog post about it. I made a video about it. I was like, this lady changed my life. And let me tell you, Miss Dillon really doesn't think she did anything special. Like, she literally was just doing her job. Like, she was supposed to go through and make sure she had everybody's declarations on record so that we could put it into the graduation program. Like, or when I would walk into her office and I would just be trying to hang out, and she push everything to the side and be like, Kimberly girl, what are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing right now? Miss Dillon had no idea that I was being abused at home. She had no idea that I had been verbally beaten down since the time that I was like 5. She had no idea, but she took the time to see me and to make time for me and to get to know me and to recognize that I had worth and I had value. So when we talk about the power of a teacher, we literally can make or break a child. And that power is so large that I don't feel like it can even really be conceptualized in a way to help people to understand. But what I know is that every single one of us has had a teacher that has left an impact on us because we've all gone to school. And some of us have a string of amazing impacts and powerful impacts that we're just like, man, I love school. And others of us had impacts where school is the reason why we're still broken and still traumatized because there were so many teachers that abused their power.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that because I feel like with everything that is going on right now, and everything, especially here locally in Tampa, that we're looking at, there's no excuse for not speaking life into a child. When I'm doing these trainings and I'm talking to teachers, the reason that I'm so passionate about the things that I talk about is because no child deserves to feel that they are worthless at the hand of a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't care if they were the most challenging child that was in that class. I don't care if they skip your class every day, they got suspended, and they threatened your life. Our job as educators is to see the person inside of them that they may not have yet met. To call forth, I used to tell my children, I'm going to call forth who you are from your toes. And I expect that child to rise up, because this right here, this ain't you. And I'm not doing this with you. So you let me know when you're ready. And then I want to talk to that person. Because this, we're not doing this. You're better than this. Even if they hadn't shown me that they were better than that. Even if they were doing things that literally made me want to fight them. And there have been times, like there have been times I've been like, I'm about to take these earrings off and we could go outside because you tried me. But something always says, this is a child and they are doing the best they can. What is the story behind the story? Am I looking at them and just saying, oh, that's just some disconnected whatever, and I done brushed them off and discounted them and just tossed them to the wayside? Or am I truly making an opportunity to call forth their brilliance? I forgot Sister Lucy used to say that to me. Access your brilliance. Where is your brilliance? I'm sorry. I did a lot of talking, Bianca. I don't want to make this be the Kimberly show.
And it's not. It's authentic and it's open and it's needed. This reminds me of a story of my former student, and there was a teacher that was next door to me that told my student that he was going to drop out and he was going to sell drugs and that he was going to be a drug dealer and he wasn't going to ever make it to football because it's only 2% of the population. And I remember the day that after he heard that, he left that classroom and he immediately came to mind.
Mm.
And I could tell on his face that there was something wrong. Mind you, I have a whole class that we trying to learn coding. Okay. We trying to learn how to build these websites, right? And I have a student that comes into my room looking defeated. And the look on his face crushed me. And, I was able to redirect my children to continue to work independently on the assignment that we were working on. And it gave me an opportunity to talk to the student, to get to the root, to figure out what was going on because they looked so defeated. And it was because this teacher that was frustrated in their situation, in their environment, decided that they were going to spit hate to a young king just because he doesn't know how to deal with his own trauma, because it's a skill that he wasn't taught. And he displayed behaviors that clearly show signs of depression and clearly show signs of anger and sadness. But no one took the time to talk to this young king to figure out what was going on. And the power of the teacher is that I worked with this young king, and still to this day, he's in high school, he's making good grades, he's on the junior and varsity football team, and he could have allowed that one teacher to say, you know what, forget it, I'm going to drop out, because it's in middle school. They have an option to do that. But he pressed on and he's in high school. And it just reminds me of trauma in my childhood where, when you're trying to figure out, who you are, and it's in a time that it's not popular, where, you see all these rainbow flags around. I didn't see that in my childhood. I didn't know what a rainbow flag was until I got to college. So, you would have people that judged you and look at you different and didn't want to understand you, but then you want to teach me.
Mm.
And that doesn't make me buy into what you're trying to teach me if you don't see me for who I am.
Right.
And I just go to the root and the power of a teacher. Your duty and your job is to try to connect with every single one of your children, regardless if they get on your nerves or not, because each one of them, they have something special in them. And your duty is to tap that potential in whatever shape or form that may be. But you're right. If you have a teacher that is not pushing you forward or trying to push you down, you remember that.
Hmm.
And sometimes that trauma, you can deal with that forever unless you get the help and you have the skills to allocate that into compartments and not take that personal and continue to, strive for success.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely, we as the educators have the unique ability to be able to say that we are literally holding the future in our hands.
Yeah.
Like in real life, we're holding these children's future in our hands. And we have to demand more. We have to demand that um, teachers use that power responsibly, and they I tell people all the time, we have to stop looking at kids and we have to see kids. So what you just described there is he walked in and you didn't just look and see that he walked in, but you saw that something else was going on and you cared enough to care. And that small thing makes such a big difference. They said today during that webinar, it is free to change your mindset and it's free to love kids. This is not anything that costs you a penny. It is free to decide that you're going to love kids. And if we're in the business of educating kids and spending all this time with kids, then we need to be willing to invest in seeing and loving and caring about our kids, period. And as a community, we have to hold our educators responsible for that.
Yeah.
Quisha made a comment, and I wanted to just repeat what she said really quick. She said, one of the principles I had made us say daily, I will, you can, we must all do our best. Affirmations are a powerful thing because self talk is something that is programmed into our minds by people who don't necessarily have our best interest in mind. And those words resonate in people's spirit. Words have meaning, words have power. The Bible says death and life is in the power of the tongue. And we literally can speak life into our kids or we can speak death over our kids. And today I challenge each of you to speak life and understand that the power that you hold is like none other. So
Yeah.
all I have to say about that.
um, what I will say is that, this episode and this topic was hard for me personally, um, just due to the obstacles that I've had in my life with education and the lack thereof. And you have some people that hop into the education system and they see it as a job, they see it as an opportunity, but they are not really vested in educating the children. And then you have school board races where you have people that just hop out the woodwork to say, I want to advocate for kids. And how are you speaking life to the people that you want to serve? And we see people that hop into seats just for political, you know, going up the ladder. And somehow people think that that particular seat is a stepping stone. but you're stepping on the backs of our children if you're not intentional to understand that they are the future, they do matter, they are important, they are valuable, and we have to do everything that we can to make sure that we are properly advocating for our children because a lot of them are going through a lot to this day in 2020, and it's sad. And this was just very personal for me, just because it invoked a lot of emotion and feelings in regards to this. And the power of a teacher is everything, and that's why when we talk about having equity and having the number of educators that reflect people that look like us, it matters, because I don't think that all educators have that mindset of I want to speak life to everybody.
Oh,
And who loses at the end of that?
exactly.
Yeah,
Like the kids that don't have a voice, that's who
yeah.
loses. I thank you for your vulnerability and willingness. I know it's been a lot. It's been a lot these past couple weeks, and I thank you for being willing to continue to fight even when it's tough. Um, and I'm going to remind both of us to go back and look at our self care plans that we made so that we can make sure that we are taking care of our spirits, because this is heart work. And I didn't say hard, HARD. I said heart, HEART. This is heart work that we do. And everything that we do comes directly from our heart. None of this is for um, anything but these children who don't have a voice and didn't ask to be here. So we just ask all of you that have been following Teaching for the Culture and have been following the whole child and have been following us that you are intentional in picking up your piece of of this fight, and that you join us in this heart work, because we cannot do this by ourselves. It really does take a village, and we need the village to be activated because we tired, y'all.
Yeah.
We tired. So
Well, with that being said, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to today's episode, and thank you, Kimberlyn, for going over, this breakdown. It's really important that we are intentional. So I just want to thank everyone and thank you guys for tuning in to Teaching for the Culture. And we're going to exercise our self-care plan right after this episode.
yes, sir.
So with that being said, you guys have a fabulous evening and you guys be blessed.
Thank y'all.